Welcome back to BIS, baby. This is the Bionicle Inspiration series where we showcase mocks from across the Bionicle community to give you some inspiration and ideas for whatever it is you might be building or planning on building, or maybe you just want to look at some cool mocks. That's okay too. So today's episode's all about Makuta, any other kind of evil, sinister villain mocks, but I guess all of these are more specifically Makuta mocks because they fit into the Bionicle lore and can be classified as Makuta. Some people requested this episode come out, and I said, of course. So here it is. And by all means, if you have suggestions for themes, leave them in the comments below, and I'll happily listen to your suggestions again and do that for the next episode. It's up to you. I do have a bit of a list that I keep as well, so I can always add it to the list and just refer back to that and stuff. So yeah, but let's dive into some Makuta mocks. The first mock we've got today is by Sylvan R, and this is Makuta Sphera. So something that immediately grabbed me about this is the fact that he has this sort of like pet. And the pet itself looks very sort of, I don't know, almost like experimental. I kind of get the sense that this Makuta maybe does weird, inhumane experiments on creatures and probably even people and stuff, and just makes weird, like, abominations and crazy creatures and things like that. So I like that idea just as an overall concept of, I mean, because that's what Makuta are, right? They're the bad guys. And you look at things like Star Wars and other stuff. Sometimes, like, villains like to do weird cloning or other sort of strange experiments or just absolutely inhumane, awful things. So, why not put that in your Makuta mocks and translate it into Lego form? It's a bit creepy, it's a bit weird, but it's a cool idea. So it's something you can consider, and I think this is a really nice way of doing it. So actually looking at this little sort of pet that he has here, I like the little kind of collar design that he's got, just a little chain around the neck there, but it conveys the point, and it certainly feels very pet-like. I also like this sort of curved back that he's got here, just sort of slightly angling some of these, construction shell pieces here. It works really well, and it forms a nice sort of back design there. The actual mock itself, Makuta Sphera, however you pronounce that name, the color scheme is certainly interesting. The dark red and the lime there. It's a nice kind of color combination that kind of reminds me of Gorast and Antros from the Mystica and Fantoka waves of Bionicle. Kind of looks like a bit of a combination of the two there. So it's an interesting idea to kind of call back to colors that Makuta have appeared to have in Bionicle sets. Maybe, kind of could be a bit of an homage there, or could just be that they used lime and dark red together on the mock. I don't know, but maybe if you're stuck for a specific Makuta color scheme, you could look to some of the actual Makuta sets to get some ideas. It's something to consider anyway. I also like the fact that this guy has an iron fist, because there is, of course, the saying, he ruled with an iron fist, and so the fact that he has that sort of silver claw could be a bit of symbolism for that or something like that, or he's just got a cool sort of metal claw weapon thing. Either way, I like it and it looks cool. But yeah, a nice little cool concept for a Makuta mock. Well done. The next mock we have is by Lois Nuva, and this is Makuta Gorgle. I really like this one. There's this sort of interesting kind of crazy energy to this mock. I think a lot of the choices with sort of smoother textures, but even kind of like areas like the tail as well, the sort of weird, interesting, almost like kind of fluid, liquid-like kind of curvature of that there. There's something about the energy of this combined with the face and everything that feels super like kind of rabid and energetic and excited, and I kind of can just imagine this creature like running around and just slashing at creatures and eating things and being just this sort of like wild, crazy creature. And I think that's a surprisingly fitting aesthetic for a Makuta. Like, yes, you can have kind of like we saw before, spiky, sinister-looking creatures that, clearly represent some sort of evil beast or monster or humanoid or whatever. But I like this sort of wild, crazy, out there, almost more animalistic take on one. It's a nice way of approaching a Makuta mock here, and a great way of sort of playing with textures and really kind of focusing on a unique face design there to achieve that. It's really well done. The actual face design itself is cool. It uses a Huna mask, which we can see here in orange, but of course it also came in a variety of other colors through the mask pack sets. So if you get one in black, you can recreate this face design here. And I think it's clever because, of course, naturally the Huna had that sort of big gap at the top of the mask. So it's an interesting idea to kind of feed pieces through that gap, just as a way of kind of, integrating it into a larger design there. And a lot of the original masks had that. They had sort of interesting gaps and holes in them there, which if you tried hard enough, you could often insert pieces into them. So yeah, it's a nice design. And I also like the actual face itself, specifically the choice of the crowbar piece being used as a tongue there. It's a very clever technique there. I just really, really like this take on a Makuta. It's really well done. So Excellent work, good sir. Up next is a mock by Sean Matthews, and this is Demonic Antros. So, obviously, this is a revamp of Antros, one of the old Fantoka Lego sets, one of the Makuta sets. I always liked Antros as a kid. I think he was my favorite of the lot, although that's a pretty hard pick because there are a lot of good Makuta in that wave of Bionicle sets. But what I like about this mock here is it's taking the original concept of the set and then just turning it up to 11, making it so much more like evil, sinister, and just kind of over the top, which I think is a really fun way of revamping mocks. I think it works really well on Makuta because most bad guys you can really effectively get away with them being huge, tall, spiky, evil, give them crazy weird proportions and legs and stuff because it just kind of works. So yeah, I think that in itself is a very clever concept and certainly just a fun thing to do. So I don't know, if you're just looking for a cool concept, revamp a Makuta and make them way cooler. An interesting thing you might have noticed about this mock is the wing design, and I think the wing design actually looks really nice and complements the mock well, and certainly fits that sort of demonic look. I definitely get some sort of like Beelzebub vibes, other just kind of like devil vibes, a sort of like goat aesthetic that you often see on devils, or even just like a Balrog from Lord of the Rings, like the horns, the wings, the general shape of the body, the fire and stuff like that. It seems very appropriate. So whether or not that was a source of inspiration for this mock, I don't know, but it's certainly a good idea to take inspiration from that if you're looking for something to get inspired by. But with the wings specifically, so these aren't official Lego pieces. At first I thought these were just custom cloth pieces, and I was like, man, the like texture and pattern on them there is pretty cool. Whatever cloth you used from the cloth store, great job. But turns out these are actually from a Mega Construx set of one of the dragons from Game of Thrones. And I actually saw this set at the shops, and I remember debating buying it because it actually looks really cool, but I was like, no, it's Mega Construct. I don't want to buy Mega Construct. I want to buy Lego. But if you don't really care about that sort of stuff, or you find that on clearance like I did at one point, probably a really cool solution for a really interesting looking kind of cloth wing aesthetic. It looks awesome. It looks really, really good. And I think it's also really important to note that cloth pieces, yes, Lego has a bunch of official ones. Some of them are annoyingly expensive for a piece of cloth. So if you want to go the official route, there's nothing wrong with that, and certainly do so, especially if you've already got some lying around, or you get them from like the Star Wars Ultra Build sets where hopefully they're a bit cheaper. But totally invest in some custom cloth. Look at other toys or other brands and different things and use those cloth pieces on your Bionicle mocks because, like here, you can get some pretty good results with them. So yeah, I just really like how that looks, and the fact that there's almost sort of printing on that cloth, which you don't see as much on official Lego cloth pieces. I suppose you do on some of the cloth from Ninjago dragons and things like that. But still, if you can use it to your advantage, do it because it looks so cool here. I do like the kind of added horns on Antros's mask. Those work surprisingly well, and again, kind of dips into that Balrog or devil kind of aesthetic with this mock, which is perfect since it's called Demonic Antros after all. I also enjoy the way he's kind of redone the torso here. It's obviously paying homage to the original set that had the sort of like Shadow Leech cage wrapped in the torso with those claws. You can see that there's sort of notes of that here, but it's been expanded and sort of buffed out a little bit to fit with the newer scale of this mock. And I also like the fact that there's claws on the legs here as well. There's something about that just looks, I don't know, it kind of reminds me of like veins, or it could even be sort of like scales of sorts. And if this is, if he's got some sort of weird scaly aesthetic, I guess it works. But either way, I just think that's a very appropriate look and a nice use of those pieces. And great to see them continued from the torso and also on the legs there. I think it's always nice when people repeat pieces on a mock there, just so there's, consistent textures and a sort of sense of unity between every part of the build in that sense. So yeah, really, really well done with this mock here. It's fun. On to the last mock now. This is by Leonard Ahn, and this is Pterodax, Master of Shadows. So, of course, this is a revamp of the big bad evil guy from Bionicle. It's Pterodax, of course. This is what the original set looked like, and this is certainly a big improvement on the original set. I always loved the original set, but, it's one of the earlier waves of Bionicle, so it's nice to see it reimagined with more modern pieces and modern designs and techniques and things. It's a cool set to behold. And what I really like about the mock that Leonard's done here is the accessories. There's these images here where he has a violin. There's some where he's got a glass of wine. And I love that. Yes, cool. You can give your mock a sword, a weapon, or whatever, which of course this mock also has. But isn't it cooler to give them weird, obscure stuff like a violin and a wine glass, or I don't know, maybe like a teddy bear or something, which maybe wouldn't fit this mock specifically, but it's an interesting idea to build a Makuta that has a teddy bear. Like, they're this evil dude, but they still need a teddy to sleep with at night. Yeah, I love the idea of giving a mock that, because it had so much personality to it and kind of sets it apart from other mocks as well. It just makes it more interesting and fun. It's just super cool. So yeah, I definitely recommend you do that. And these are very sort of system heavy pieces, these accessories, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And yeah, maybe you could try and replicate it with actual Bionicle pieces, but given the scale, it might be a bit more difficult. You know, using your system pieces often helps to replicate sort of smaller, more intricate objects in that sense. So very fitting in that regard. But yeah, so cool. I love that little touch to this mock here. I also enjoy the sort of gentlemanly aesthetic that this mock has. He kind of reminds me of like Count Dooku, for example, from, you know, Attack of the Clones, other Clone Wars and Star Wars things. He seems like the kind of guy that would tell you that you're using the wrong sort of suffix or whatever in your grammar, or you're sitting at the table right now and you are not actually fitting the appropriate etiquette, and then he'll stab you or poison you in the drink that you're about to drink, or whatever. You know, he's a lot more sort of sophisticated in the way that he's evil, or the way that he's going to destroy you, sort of thing, you know? And that's a great aesthetic to capture for a bad guy. So yeah, very well done in that sense. I love the fact that he's kind of given him that more sort of like almost suit vibe by giving him this sort of waistcoat, using some of these Chima feather pieces in black. It makes for a great waistcoat. And then the combination of that little gold chrome key that came on some of the old Harry Potter sets there. Fantastic choice. Again, love those little accessories. Very appropriate there. The stand is interesting as well. Adds a bit of context. Looks nice. And I like the fact there's this little infected Howl kind of thing in the background. I don't really know what it is, but it's very appropriate and fits with the mock nicely. And the little candle on top. The accessories really just make this mock. I just love it. It's so cool. Yeah, it's just a really fun, brilliant build for a Makuta. And he has the super expensive movie Krakan, which is that sort of slight variant of Makuta's mask there, which I believe came as a little addition if you bought the movie, what was it, Legends of Metru Nui movie, I think? I don't know. I've always called that the movie Krakan. I assume that's where it came from. That has escaped my memory for where that specifically comes from. Maybe people can let me know, or maybe I was correct in what I said. I actually don't know. But still, it's a very nice mask that I don't have, and I'd like to have one. It's a cool one. And I think it actually complements this mock very nicely. There's a little bit more sort of slight smooth aesthetic to it, which complements the CCBS nicely. So really well done, good sir. And nicely done to all the people in this episode, because that's it for these Makuta mocks. I hope you very much enjoyed. Check the links in the description to see more from these builders, and maybe even leave a comment on their build so you can let these builders know what you think of what they did. Additionally, in the description is links to my own social media, as well as the submission email, which is also on your screen right now. So if you want to submit some of your own mocks to be featured on the show, that is the way to do so. There's no right way of submitting. Just put whatever you want in an email, send it my way, and I'll see what I can do. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Hope you very much enjoyed. Happy building, and bye for now.